And in the quiet, her hand brushed against his, hesitant, like testing the weight of a choice she wasn't ready to say aloud. Kessa's perfect. I looked at her, the way her hand trembled against the railing, the way she couldn't quite meet my eyes, and I replied softly. That's what Mate rooftop was colder than he expected. The September air carried a sharpness that made every breath sting, and the hum of traffic below rose and fell like an uneven heartbeat. She stood near the edge, her coat unbuttoned, hair moving in restless streaks against the skyline glow. He paused by the door, watching her silhouette framed by blinking neon across the street. She didn't turn when she spoke. You're 24. Her voice was steady, almost rehearsed. I'm 42. We're too different. The words carried no anger, only fatigue, like someone folding the same letter again and again. He stepped forward, gravel crunching under his sneakers, until the distance between them felt both too small and not nearly enough. His hands dug into his jacket pockets, nails pressing into his palms to steady him. Different, he said slowly, is the point. Finally, she turned. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes searched his face as though trying to find the boy in him, or perhaps the man. You think that's enough? She asked. When people stare? When my friends whisper? When you realize I've lived half a life you haven't touched? Her phone vibrated once in her hand, screen glowing briefly. He glimpsed his own name before she silenced it. A voicemail he'd left days ago, maybe, unsent words echoing now in her pocket. He swallowed, gaze drifting past her shoulder to the city's restless lights. I don't want someone who fits neatly into a box I can explain to strangers. I want. He stopped, exhaled, let the sentence break apart. I want the way you pause before you laugh, like you're not sure you're allowed. I want how you notice when I'm quiet before I even know it myself. Those differences? They're not cracks, they're anchors. Her hand tightened on the railing, knuckles pale. She looked away, down at the blur of headlights, as if the city might answer for her. Anchors can drown you too, she whispered. Silence stretched. A plane crossed overhead, blinking against the dark. He moved closer, until the warmth of her coat brushed his sleeve. Or, he said softly, they can keep you from drifting when everything else tries to pull you apart. Her breath caught, small, almost inaudible, but she didn't step back. She didn't answer, either. Instead, she let the phone slip into her pocket, screen dark. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city roared beneath them, a reminder of all the judgments waiting outside this rooftop. But here, in the hush between sentences, the difference didn't feel like a barrier. It felt like the edge of something they had not yet dared to name. She turned, finally, and her gaze met his, steady this time, unflinching. He said nothing more, just waited. The kitchen clock ticked louder at night. At least it felt that way. Each second jabbed at the silence between them as the overhead light flickered once, then steadied. He sat at the table, shoulders slouched, a mug of coffee untouched in front of him. It had gone cold an hour ago, but he still wrapped his hands around it, like warmth could be coaxed back with enough patience. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the floor tiles. Her phone rested beside the sink, screen still glowing from the voicemail she hadn't meant for him to hear. He broke the silence first. So his name's David? Her head lifted, sharply, but her expression softened when she saw the awkward half-smile on his face. Not angry, just raw, uncertain. He's an old friend, she said. A pause. From before you. The words landed heavy, though her tone was light. She didn't add that the voicemail had been gentle, almost tender, his name spoken like a memory she hadn't wanted to share. He shifted in his chair, tapping the mug's rim. You laughed when he said your name. I laugh with you too, she replied, and her arms dropped, though her hands fidgeted against the counter's edge. Not like that, he murmured. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. She exhaled slowly, as if trying to release years she had carried alone. You think I don't notice how young you are? She asked quietly. How people look when we're out. You think I don't wonder what happens when you find someone closer to stop? His voice cut through, firmer than she expected. He pushed the mug aside and stood, moving toward her. His footsteps echoed against the linoleum, each one deliberate. When he stopped, only a foot separated them. His height made the distance feel smaller, but the weight of her doubts hung thick between them. You hear his voice, he said, softer now. And I hear every insecurity you don't say out loud. That I'm a phase. That I'll wake up one day and realize you were right. That we're too different. But here's the thing. He reached out, fingers brushing the side of the phone still on the counter, then pulled back. I'm not here because you're easy to explain. I'm here because you're impossible to replace. Her eyes closed briefly, and when she opened them again, they glistened, not with tears, but with something closer to surrender. You're too stubborn, she whispered. And you, he said, a faint smile returning, are terrible at making coffee. But I still drink it. The joke broke the tension just enough. She let out a small laugh, real this time, unguarded, and placed her hand over his, grounding it against the counter. The clock kept ticking, indifferent. But the silence between them was no longer sharp. It was shared, stretched, and strangely safe. Rain streaked the bookstore windows in uneven lines, blurring the world outside into gray watercolor. Inside, the air smelled of paper and dust, soft with the hum of an old radiator. He wandered between shelves, fingers trailing spines without reading the titles, until he saw her in the corner. She sat at a small wooden table with two mugs, one half empty, the other untouched. An umbrella leaned against her chair, forgotten, dripping a small puddle onto the floor. She didn't notice. Her gaze was fixed on the paperback open in front of her, though her eyes weren't moving across the words. He cleared his throat, softly. Is this seat taken? She looked up, startled, then shook her head. No, it was, but not anymore. Her voice faltered, and he wondered what story lived behind those words. He slid into the chair opposite her. The untouched mug steamed faintly. He gestured toward it. Cold. Not yet, she said, then hesitated. I ordered it for someone who didn't show. The air between them carried something unsaid, something heavier than rain. He didn't press. Instead, he wrapped his hands around the abandoned mug, feeling its fading warmth seep into his skin. Minutes passed like that. The radiator clicked. Pages turned elsewhere in the store. She finally closed her book, setting it down carefully, as if the act itself required courage. My husband used to love this place, she said quietly, eyes on the window. We'd come here every Sunday. He'd buy too many books, and I'd pretend to be annoyed, but secretly I liked watching him light up over stories. The confession hung in the air, fragile. He swallowed, not sure if he should speak. Then, I'm sorry. She gave a small, tired smile. Everyone says that. I don't mean it like that, he said quickly. I mean, I'm sorry you're here with a second cup cooling instead of him. Her fingers tapped the table once, twice, before stilling. She studied him, as if deciding whether his words carried weight. Finally, she whispered, he's been gone 3 years. And still, I keep ordering 2 cups. Silence again. The rain outside deepened, drumming against the glass like restless fingers. He shifted, then leaned forward slightly, careful not to crowd her. Maybe you don't need to stop ordering 2. Maybe it just means you're still open to someone sitting down. Her eyes flicked to him, sharp at first, then softening. The umbrella beside her dripped, forgotten. For the first time, she laughed, quiet, shaky, but real. You're too young to talk like that, she said. Or maybe, he replied, a tentative smile tugging at his lips. I've just been listening. The radiator groaned. The second mug of coffee was finally cool, but she slid it closer to him anyway, as if sharing the ritual mattered more than the taste. Outside, the rain began to ease. The streetlights buzzed faintly as they flickered to life, washing the suburban street in a pale, orange glow. His breath formed little clouds in the cool evening air, while her car idled at the curb, headlights casting long, sharp beams across the asphalt. They'd missed the last train hours ago. What was supposed to be a brief afternoon coffee had unraveled into awkward silences, shared stories, and a walk back here that felt longer than the distance. Now, they stood beside her car. Neither made the first move to end it. You should go, she said finally, her keys dangling from her hand. Her voice was firm, but her eyes darted away. Neighbors will start wondering if they see us standing here. He shifted, shoving his hands deep into his jacket. Wondering what? She laughed once, but it was thin, brittle. That I'm old enough to be your don't. His voice cracked sharper than he meant. He stepped forward, then stopped short, gravel crunching under his shoe. Don't reduce it to that. Her lips pressed into a tight line. She turned toward the car as if to escape the conversation, but didn't open the door. You think it's that simple? She asked, softer now. You walk into my life at 25 and pretend the world won't notice? They'll stare. They'll whisper. You'll get tired of defending it. His jaw clenched. The streetlight above them flickered again, buzzing like a nervous witness. Do you care about them? He asked slowly. Or about me? The question hung heavy. She drew a shaky breath, her hands tightening around the keys until the metal bit into her palm. I care about the mess you'll step into because of me, she admitted. The judgment, the looks, the way my own family will. He cut her off, stepping closer until her reflection shimmered faintly in the car window between them. Then let me choose if I care. Stop making the decision for me. Her shoulders sagged, tension spilling into the night air. For the first time, her gaze met his fully, no deflection, no half-smile. Just raw, unguarded fear. What if I'm not enough for you? She whispered. The silence stretched, broken only by the low rumble of the idling engine. He reached out, not touching her, just close enough that his hand hovered near hers. Then you'll be the first person who ever was, he said. Her breath hitched, keys trembling in her grasp. She didn't answer, not in words. Instead, she let the keys slip from her hand, landing with a muted clink against the car's roof. For a moment, they both just stood there, the world reduced to orange light, engine hum, and the unsteady rhythm of shared hesitation. She didn't tell him to leave again. And that, for now, was enough. The station was half empty at dawn, filled with the echo of rolling suitcases and the hiss of departing trains. He sat on a bench near the platform, clutching a paper cup of coffee gone lukewarm, eyes fixed on the digital board overhead. She almost walked past him. The crowd parted just enough for her to see the familiar curve of his shoulders, the restless tapping of his foot. She froze, her suitcase tilting slightly in her grip. He looked up at the same moment. Their eyes met, 2 years of silence compressed into a single glance. You weren't supposed to be here, she said, moving closer, voice low so it wouldn't carry. Neither were you. He tried to smile, but it faltered. I thought you hated early mornings. Her laugh was short, more breath than sound. Still do. She set her suitcase down, smoothing the handle like it might anchor her. I didn't expect to see you again. He nodded, staring into his cup. Funny. I left a voicemail once, after you left town. Never sent it. That caught her. What did it say? The board above them beeped, announcing a delay. The universe buying him time. He exhaled slowly, as though drawing courage from the pause. It said I was sorry, he admitted. Sorry I let fear make decisions for both of us. Sorry I pretended we were a mistake instead of whatever we were. Her lips parted, then closed again. She shifted, her hands restless on the suitcase handle. And now, he looked at her fully, eyes steady despite the tremor in his hands. Now I'd say I don't care if people stare, or whisper, or think we don't make sense. I just don't want another train to leave with you on it. Silence stretched, punctuated by the distant clatter of a baggage cart. She didn't move at first. Her face held years of caution, of practiced restraint. But beneath it, something fragile cracked open. I told myself we were too different, she whispered, that it couldn't last. But when I left, every station, every empty hotel room, it felt like I'd left something I wasn't supposed to. The next announcement rang out, boarding now at platform 4. Her train. She reached for her suitcase, then hesitated. Her hand trembled before she let go again, letting it stand abandoned by her side. He stood, as if pulled by the same gravity that made her pause. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then, quietly, almost as if afraid the moment would vanish, he asked, Do you want to miss this one? Her breath caught. She looked at the suitcase, then at him, and for the first time in years, her smile was unguarded. Maybe just this once. The board flickered, the train doors slid closed without her. And in the space left behind, there was room for something new. The rooftop garden smelled faintly of rosemary and damp soil. She had lit a candle in a chipped glass jar, setting it on the small iron table between them, but the evening breeze kept snuffing it out. Each time the flame flickered back to smoke, she leaned forward to relight it, stubborn, almost ritualistic. He watched, elbows resting on his knees, saying nothing at first. The city stretched behind her, windows glowing, sirens echoing somewhere distant. You don't have to keep doing that, he murmured finally. Her lighter clicked again. The wick flared, danced, then guttered out. She exhaled, frustrated, and let the lighter fall onto the table with a clatter. I hate when it goes dark. He tilted his head, studying her face. The lines around her eyes. The way her shoulders seemed heavier than they should for someone so composed. He wanted to ask, but the word stuck. Instead, he reached for the jar, steadying it with his palm. You ever think maybe it's not about the candle? She gave him a sideways glance, lips pressing together, caught between deflecting and answering. Finally, she whispered, I spent years in a house where I could have screamed and no one would have looked up. My husband worked late, my son lived in headphones. Even the dog stopped greeting me at the door. Her fingers tapped the table, 1, 2, 3, before going still. When the house went quiet, I thought it was normal. Until it wasn't. The confession sat between them, heavier than the skyline. He swallowed, gripping the jar tighter, as if holding space for her. I know what it's like, he said quietly. Different version. Parents who spoke in checklists instead of conversations. Teachers who forgot my name by the end of the semester. Whole years where I felt like wallpaper. She blinked, surprised by the rawness in his tone. Then her gaze dropped to the candle. So we both hate the dark. Yeah, he said, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. But maybe it feels less empty when someone's sitting in it with you. The wind brushed past, lifting a strand of her hair across her cheek. She didn't tuck it back. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, closer to the jar. You're too young to understand what kind of loneliness stays with you, she murmured. Or maybe, he countered gently. I understand it because I've carried my own. Her eyes met his then, searching, unguarded. The lighter was still on the table, but neither reached for it again. The candle remained dark, yet somehow, the absence of flame no longer felt unbearable. She reached across, her hand grazing his where it held the jar. Not gripping, not claiming, just resting there, testing the weight of contact. The city buzzed below, indifferent. Up here, in the quiet, the unlit candle became less about loss and more about presence. For the first time that night, she didn't try to fix the flame. She simply let it be. The diner smelled faintly of grease and burnt coffee, the kind of scent that clung to your clothes long after you left. Neon letters buzzed outside the window, casting the booths in flickering pink. At 1 a.m., the place was nearly empty, just a trucker nursing soup at the counter, a waitress refilling salt shakers, in them. She sat across from him, stirring sugar into her coffee though she never drank it sweet. He smirked when he noticed. You don't even like sugar, he said, tilting his head. I don't, she admitted, letting the spoon clink against the mug. But it gives me something to do. He chuckled, pushing his plate of fries toward her. You could just steal my food instead. She raised an eyebrow. Steal? At my age, it's called borrowing. Still, she plucked a fry and bit into it slowly, pretending not to notice him watching. The jukebox in the corner crackled to life suddenly, coughing out the same old love song it had been stuck on all night. The melody wavered, skipping once, then carrying on. She groaned softly. If that thing plays the chorus one more time, I'm leaving. You won't, he said, leaning back in the booth, a lazy grin tugging at his lips. Her eyes narrowed in mock challenge. Oh, you think you know me that well? I know you stayed to finish cold coffee you didn't even want, he teased. So yeah, I think you'll stay. Her smile flickered, but it was there. She hid it behind the rim of her mug. Careful. Confidence that high usually comes before a fall. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, lowering his voice. Maybe, or maybe it's just trust. The word hung between them. She set her mug down carefully, fingers brushing the handle longer than needed. Trust is a big word, she said softly. Especially at 1 in the morning in a place like this. He shrugged, but the smile softened. So we start small. Like me trusting you won't eat all my fries. She laughed then, real unguarded. It filled the empty diner, made the waitress glance over with a faint smile of her own. Fine, she said, reaching for another fry anyway. But I'm making no promises. The jukebox skipped again, dragging out the same aching chorus. Neither of them moved this time. Instead, he pushed the plate closer to her side of the booth. Minutes passed in companionable silence. The hum of the neon, the clink of dishes from the kitchen, the distant sound of rain beginning against the windows. Finally, she looked at him, serious now. You really think this can work? He met her gaze without hesitation. I don't just think. I'm willing to prove it. One fry at a time. Her laugh returned, softer this time, carrying something steadier underneath. The kind of laugh that sounded a little like trust beginning to take root.